The film begins with two men riding a horse-drawn carriage. At that time, they work as delivery people. As they travel down the road, they are surprised to see a man lying in the middle of their path. One of the delivery men gets suspicious and pulls out his gun. He shoots at the man, but he misses. He only wanted to see if the man was alive because if he was, the sound of the gun would wake him up. But the man didn't move, so it looked like he was dead. Suddenly, someone else points a gun at the delivery men. It turns out to be a trick by robbers. One of the robbers pretended to be dead in the road so that the delivery men would stop. Once they did, the robbers could attack them. There were 4 robbers in total, and they quickly took the horses away from the carriage. Then, they checked inside the carriage and found a woman and a box full of gold coins. One of the robbers made a mistake by accidentally taking off his mask so the woman could see his face. Meanwhile, another robber, who was checking the gold box, was being very nice to the woman. After taking the box of gold, the robbers rode away on their horses. At that time, the courier tried to shoot the robber, but the robber had both a gun and a rifle. The courier's efforts failed, and he ended up getting shot in his left eye. Years later, the courier was seen with a farmer named Nath, who was one of the robbers that had shot him. One day, a bank officer and his friend, Hank Holliday, visited Nath. Hank told Nath that if he didn't pay his debt, which was already 3 months overdue, the bank would take away Nath's house and farm. Nath was given until the next month to pay. Nath agreed and mentioned that his wife was sick. Suddenly, Nath's wife, Laura, came out to greet Hank. There, Nath signaled Hank to leave quickly so Laura wouldn't worry about their conversation. However, Laura noticed something was wrong with Nath and asked him about it. Then, he eventually told her the truth. After Laura went back inside, Nath's old friend, Frank, who was also part of the robbers, showed up. Nath was angry, but Frank told him that their colleague Clint had been killed by the police, and now the police were after them too. Meanwhile, Laura was checked by a local doctor whom they trusted. It turns out that what has been making her feel sick and nauseous is because she's pregnant, which is something both Laura and Nath have been eagerly hoping for. While eating breakfast with Laura the next morning, Nath looked worried and restless. But Laura was very happy about her pregnancy and wanted to share the news with him right away. However, after noticing Nath's anxiety, Laura asked if his worry was due to his debt. Nath then showed his gun to Laura. Although she knew about Nath's past as a robber, she accepted it because he wanted to change. Before Laura could tell him about her pregnancy, a policeman and a woman arrived outside their house, looking for Nath, possibly with the intent to harm him. At that time, Nath told Laura to hide upstairs with a gun and instructed Frank to leave the house. Nath wanted to avoid violence and hoped to resolve the situation peacefully, so he went outside unarmed to meet the one-eyed policeman. To his surprise, the policeman was the same courier Nath and his friends had robbed before. Nath was the one who had caused the policeman, named Calhoun, to lose his eye. Calhoun was seeking revenge, not just doing his job as a police officer. Unexpectedly, Frank started shooting from behind, sparking a battle that moved into Nath's house. Inside, Calhoun and his partner, Bonnie, split up to search for Nath and Frank. Nath ended up facing Bonnie, while Calhoun headed upstairs where Laura was hiding. Laura quickly fired her gun, hitting Calhoun in the right side of his chest. However, Calhoun managed to shoot back towards Laura. Not long after, Frank told Nath that Laura had died from being shot in the head. Nath couldn't believe it and wanted to check on her upstairs, but Frank stopped him and insisted they leave the house immediately. The next morning, Nath woke up alone in the forest and realized that Frank had abandoned him. Later, Frank returned and said the police had left but had left Laura's body at the door. Nath was shocked and speechless. Frank then suggested that they return to their old job of robbing, and he also invited Nath to meet an old friend named Sid Dalton. When they met Sid Dalton, Nath was impressed by Sid's homemade alcoholic drink made from apple juice, which Sid called Applejack. After that, Frank told Sid about what had happened to Nath and his family, explaining that Nath's wife was killed by the police, who used to be the courier they robbed. To show solidarity, Sid agreed to join Frank and Nath in returning to their old ways of robbing. During one of their heists, Frank suggested that Nath use a new name to make it harder for Calhoun to find him. Nath remembered Sid Dalton's apple drink and decided to call himself Texas Jack. And this is how the story of Texas Jack began. After years of robbing, Nath still missed his wife, Laura. One day, Sid Dalton finally got to see a photo of Nath and Laura. Sid commented that Nath's wife was very beautiful. Meanwhile, at a bar, Frank was seen gambling. Unfortunately, it wasn't a good day for him because Kelvin and Bonnie showed up. At that time, Kelvin decided to play a joke on Frank and asked him to guess who he really was. Frank guessed that Calhoun was the person who killed his friend Clint. Frank thought about running away but realized he was trapped. So, he made an offer. He told Kelvin that he could help make Texas Jack, or was known as Nath, a wanted man in 4 countries. If Kelvin killed Texas Jack, he would get a huge reward. Frank also promised to tell them where Texas Jack was, but he wanted 20% of the reward money. Kelvin agreed. After meeting with Calhoun, Frank and Texas Jack managed to rob someone again. However, Frank caused trouble by killing one of the couriers. This made Texas Jack very angry because he knew that killing people would make the American police hunt them down even more seriously, and they could be killed too. When Texas Jack told Frank to get the safe combination, Frank killed the last courier, saying that the person could testify if left alive. Hearing this, Jack was furious and hit Frank. Soon after, they left the scene, but Frank left a bottle of apple beer near the first corpse. Later, when Jack and Sid Dalton were waiting for Frank to return, they found themselves at Nath's old house. However, Frank never showed up. So, Sid Dalton decided to go to town first to buy supplies while they waited for Frank. While in town, Sid Dalton was shocked to see a woman who looked just like Jack's late wife. He asked the woman's name, and it turned out to be true. Her name was Laura. Sid quickly returned to Jack and asked if Frank had come back yet, but Frank was still missing. They talked, and Sid wanted to tell Jack what he saw in town, but Jack told him to wait because a courier was about to arrive. When they stopped the courier train, they were surprised to find that it was empty. Soon after, Calhoun appeared, revealing that he had set a trap for Jack and Sid, using information he got from Frank. Then, a fight broke out, and Jack was shot in the stomach. Shortly after, Sid went to Jack and told him about seeing Laura earlier. At first, Jack didn't believe him, but Sid insisted that he should go see her. Meanwhile, Sid decided to surrender. After the fight, Jack woke up in his old home, surprised to find out that Laura was still alive and had raised their son. Jack told Laura about what Frank had said 6 years ago, that she had been shot in the head. Because of that lie, Jack had become very upset and went back to his old life as a robber. Meanwhile, Sid Dalton was badly beaten by Bonnie, but Calhoun ordered a doctor to keep Sid alive. Not long after, Frank arrived and got angry when he saw Calhoun torturing Sid. However, Frank ended up getting shot and killed by Bonnie on Calhoun's orders. When Laura went to buy bandages for Jack, she found out that Calhoun was still at the doctor's office where she and Jack usually went. Laura was immediately captured and held hostage. Soon after, Calhoun came to see Jack and told him that he had taken Laura prisoner at the doctor's house. When Jack arrived at the doctor's house, he was shocked to see Laura in danger. To make things worse, Sid Dalton was about to be hanged by Calhoun. There, Calhoun ordered Jack to drop his gun and then suddenly shot him in the leg. Jack quickly took cover while Calhoun kicked away Sid Dalton's footrest, leaving him hanging. Fortunately, Hank showed up and helped Jack, revealing that Calhoun wasn't a real cop. Hearing this, Jack quickly grabbed his weapon and, with great skill, shot the rope that was hanging Sid Dalton, saving him. During the battle, Hank carried a long rifle while Jack had a pistol. Jack mentioned that he already knew Calhoun wasn't a real police officer. Meanwhile, Sid Dalton used the chaos to get closer to Jack and borrowed one of his pistols to help fight Calhoun. Soon after, Jack negotiated with Calhoun, who was still holding Laura hostage. Calhoun told Jack to come out without a gun if he wanted Laura to be freed. Hearing that Jack agreed, and Laura was released, but Calhoun almost shot Jack. However, he was quick and managed to shoot Calhoun in the chest. Not long after, the Native American police arrived and arrested Calhoun, who had been pretending to be a policeman and was hiding bodies in a train car. A week later, Jack and his family were returning home from church when Sid Dalton visited them. There, Jack told Sid that he had gotten a new job as a sheriff in the city. Sid was happy to hear this, and Jack and Laura invited him to dinner. The film ends. The moral lesson from this film is if you're gonna fake being a cop, at least learn how to dodge bullets. And never trust a guy who leaves apple beer bottles at crime scenes.